Velnara had studied war for 40 cycles. She had analyzed battles across 17 star systems and written 3 textbooks on tactical efficiency. She was a Kavathi, and her people understood warfare like others understood art. They calculated angles, measured firepower, and predicted outcomes with mathematical precision. In all her studies, one thing had puzzled her more than anything else: the stories about humans. The stories made no sense. Humans were weaker than most species. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Their technology was good but not exceptional. Their ships were adequate. Their weapons were standard. Yet every species that had fought against them spoke in hushed tones. Every species that had fought beside them showed something unusual in their eyes: respect, fear, both. Velnara did not believe in myths. She believed in data. That was why she accepted the assignment to Kesvin 7. A human battalion would fight alongside Kavathi forces against the Vrex Dominion. She would observe. She would record. She would finally understand what made humans different, if anything actually did. The forward operating base looked like every military installation she had seen. Prefabricated buildings, defensive walls, scanner arrays pointing at the red sky. The Vrex had been pushing hard for 3 months. Kesvin 7 was a mining world, and the Vrex wanted its resources. The Kavathi were contracted to defend it. Now humans had arrived to help. Velnara walked through the base with her recording equipment. She passed Kavathi soldiers in their precision formations. Everything was organized, clean, efficient. Then she reached the human section of the camp. It was chaos. Human soldiers sat in small groups, talking and laughing. Some cleaned weapons while telling stories. Others played cards. One group was singing something loud and off-key. Their equipment was scattered around them, not arranged in proper order. Velnara's analytical mind immediately classified this as poor discipline. "You must be the observer." A human woman approached. She was small by galactic standards, maybe 1.6 meters tall. Her uniform bore the insignia of a commander. "I'm Ji Soo Min. Welcome to our section." Velnara studied her. Commander Ji had dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. Her face was calm, but there was something alert about her, like a sensor that never turned off. "I am Velnara. I am here to document human combat methodology. Feel free to watch anything you want." Ji smiled. "We have nothing to hide." Over the next few days, Velnara observed and took notes. The humans were strange. They formed close bonds quickly. She watched Lieutenant Park Hyunwoo spend an hour helping a young soldier who was homesick. She saw Sergeant Kang Min-ji share her food rations with others who had already eaten theirs. The humans touched each other constantly, patting shoulders, gripping arms, gestures that seemed to communicate without words. They also prepared for battle differently than Kavathi soldiers. Kavathi troops reviewed tactical plans and ran combat simulations. Humans did those things too, but they also did other things. They wrote letters home. They looked at photographs of families. They made jokes about death that seemed inappropriate but made them laugh harder. One soldier carefully wrapped a child's drawing and stored it in his armor. "Why do they carry personal items into combat?" Velnara asked Commander Ji. "It adds weight. It provides no tactical advantage." Ji looked at the soldier with the drawing. "It reminds us why we fight. It reminds us we're more than weapons." Velnara did not understand, but she recorded the answer. The first real battle came on the 6th day. The Vrex launched an assault on the eastern perimeter. Velnara watched from the command center, monitoring multiple screens showing different parts of the battlefield. The Kavathi response was textbook perfect. They formed firing lines with proper spacing. They advanced in coordinated waves. They used suppressing fire while moving to superior positions. Their casualties were minimal because every action was calculated for maximum efficiency and minimum risk. The humans fought differently. They moved in smaller groups, but those groups seemed to know what each other was thinking. When one soldier went down with an injury, two others immediately moved to cover him, even though it meant exposing themselves to enemy fire. They took positions that seemed too aggressive, pushing forward when a cautious retreat would be smarter. Their formations looked messy, almost random, but they held their line. More than that, when a Vrex flanking force broke through the Kavathi position on the right, the humans were the ones who responded. Park led a squad in a counterattack that drove the Vrex back. It should not have worked. The humans were outnumbered in that section. But they fought with such intensity that the Vrex fell back. After the battle, Velnara reviewed the recordings. By every tactical metric she knew, the human approach was flawed. They took unnecessary risks. They wasted resources protecting wounded soldiers who could have been evacuated later. They expended ammunition at rates that should have left them vulnerable. Yet their section had the fewest casualties. Their line had never broken. They had even saved a Kavathi position from collapse. Velnara found Commander G checking on her soldiers after the fight. G moved from person to person, asking how they were, making sure wounds were treated, offering quiet words that Velnara could not hear. "Your tactics are inefficient," Velnara said. "You should have higher casualties based on your risk profile." G looked at her. The commander's uniform was dirty and torn in one place. "We're all still alive. That seems pretty efficient to me. You broke formation multiple times to rescue wounded soldiers. You exposed yourselves unnecessarily. We don't leave our people behind." G's voice was quiet but firm. "Not ever. That's not a tactic. That's a promise." Velnara recorded this answer too, but she did not understand it. In Kavathi doctrine, you preserved force strength. You made calculated decisions about acceptable losses. You did not risk 3 soldiers to save 1. That night, she heard the humans in their section. They were not celebrating their victory. They were sitting together, quiet, some of them crying. She learned that 2 soldiers had been injured, not killed, just injured. But the humans treated it like a tragedy. They stayed with the wounded ones. They told them they had fought well. They promised they would be fine. Velnara watched this and felt something unfamiliar. She did not have a word for it yet. She made a note in her files. Humans display excessive emotional attachment to unit members. Purpose unclear. Effect on combat effectiveness unclear. Requires further observation. She did not know yet that she was asking the wrong questions. She was trying to understand humans through data and tactics. But humans could not be understood that way. She would learn this soon when the real fighting began. Velnara created spreadsheets. She built models. She tracked every battle, every movement, every decision the humans made. After 2 weeks of observation, she had data. What she did not have was understanding. The pattern was clear, but impossible. Humans took risks that should kill them, but they survived. They made choices that looked like mistakes, but those choices worked. They cared about things that should not matter in combat, but somehow those things made them better fighters. She documented specific incidents. In one firefight, Sergeant Kang Min-ji carried a wounded Kavathi soldier 300 meters under enemy fire. Kang was hit twice during the rescue. Both wounds were serious. She still completed the rescue. When Velnara calculated the risk versus benefit, the numbers said Kang should have left the soldier and preserved her own combat capability. "Why did you do it?" Velnara asked Kang in the medical tent. Kang looked confused by the question. "He needed help. But you were more valuable. You are a sergeant." "He was a private. Your loss would impact unit effectiveness more significantly." Kang's expression changed. She looked at Velnara with something that might have been pity. "We don't think about people that way. Every person matters the same when they're bleeding on the ground." Velnara recorded this. It contradicted everything she knew about military efficiency. Yet the human units consistently performed above predictions. She noticed other patterns, too. Humans refused to abandon their dead. After every battle, they recovered bodies, even when it meant going into dangerous areas. They held ceremonies for fallen soldiers. They sent personal items back to families. They spoke the names of the dead like prayers. "It wastes time and resources," Velnara told Commander G. "The dead cannot benefit from these actions." G was quiet for a moment. She looked tired. They had been fighting for 3 weeks straight, and the Vreks were not giving up. "The ceremonies aren't for the dead," G said finally. "They're for us. They remind us that every person we lose mattered, that we're not just tools, that we're human." "What does being human mean?" G smiled sadly. "Ask me that again in a few weeks. Maybe you'll understand by then." The major offensive came on day 23. Velnara was in the command center when the alert started screaming. Vreks forces were attacking in strength, 3 full battalions converging on the base. The numbers were bad. The defenders were outnumbered almost 3-1. Kavathi Command made the logical decision. They ordered a strategic withdrawal to secondary positions 40 kilometers south. The base could not be held. Better to fall back, regroup, and counterattack when conditions were favorable. The Kavathi forces began their organized retreat. Everything was done properly, with covering fire and staged withdrawals. Velnara prepared to evacuate with them. Then she realized the humans were not moving. "Commander G," the Kavathi general's voice came over the communication system. "Withdraw immediately. That is a direct order." "Negative," G replied. Her voice was calm. "We have 300 civilians sheltering in this base, refugees from the nearby settlements. We will not abandon them. They are not military personnel. They are not your responsibility. They are under our protection. We gave our word we would keep them safe. Your word means nothing if you are dead. Retreat. Now." "No." Velnara stared at the screens. The humans were setting up defensive positions. They were preparing to fight alone against 3 battalions. It was insane. It was suicide. She ran calculations in her head. The humans would be overwhelmed in less than an hour. She found herself running toward the human section. Commander G was directing her soldiers, calm and focused. Park was checking ammunition supplies. Kang was reinforcing a barrier with whatever materials she could find. "You will all die," Velnara said. The words came out louder than she intended. G looked at her. "Maybe, but those civilians won't. We'll buy them enough time to evacuate." "Why? They are not your species. They are not your people." "This makes no logical sense. They're people who need help." G turned back to her preparations. "That's all the sense we need." The Vreks attacked like a wave of metal and fury. Velnara watched from the command bunker, unable to leave, unable to look away. The humans fought like nothing she had ever seen. They did not fight with the careful precision of the Kavathi. They fought with desperation and determination and something else, something fierce and unbreakable. Park held the eastern wall with just 15 soldiers against 200 Vreks. He coordinated fire with hand signals when communications were jammed. When the wall was breached, he led a counterattack into the breach itself, fighting in close quarters where the humans' smaller size became an advantage. Kang's section took heavy fire. Velnara watched as Kang was hit in the leg, then the shoulder. Medical doctrine said she should fall back. Instead, Kang tied a tourniquet on her own leg and kept firing. She dragged 3 wounded soldiers to cover, one by one, leaving a trail of her own blood across the compound. An hour passed. The humans still fought. 2 hours. 3. Velnara had never seen anything like it. By every calculation, they should be dead. But they adapted. They moved. They covered each other. When one soldier fell, another took their place. When ammunition ran low, they shared. When positions became untenable, they fell back just enough and then held again. G was everywhere, moving through the chaos with bullets cutting the air around her. She directed fire, encouraged soldiers, made split-second decisions that somehow kept the line from breaking. She fought with a rifle in one hand and a communication device in the other, coordinating her scattered forces while firing at targets herself. In the 5th hour, something changed. Velnara saw it in the way the Vrex moved. They were hesitating. They outnumbered the humans dramatically, but they were paying a terrible price for every meter of ground. The humans were not just fighting. They were making the Vrex hurt for every inch. The reinforcements arrived in the 6th hour. Kavathi forces that had been staged at the secondary position came back. Later, Velnara learned that the Kavathi soldiers had demanded to return. They could not abandon the humans who were fighting alone. The Vrex fell back. The base was saved. So were the 300 civilians. Velnara walked through the aftermath. The human section looked like a disaster. Equipment was destroyed. Walls were collapsed. Blood stained the ground. Medics moved among the wounded, and there were many wounded. 12 humans had died. 12 out of 140. She found Commander G sitting against a wall, her armor cracked and scorched. G's face was pale from blood loss, but she was smiling slightly. 64% casualties, Velnara said quietly. Tactically devastating. 300 people are alive, G replied. Tactically irrelevant, maybe, but morally, we succeeded. Velnara sat down next to her. For the first time in her life, she understood that some calculations mattered more than others. She just did not know how to put that understanding into her reports. Velnara's reports were becoming strange. She knew this because her superiors kept sending them back with questions. They wanted numbers, charts, tactical analysis. She gave them those things, but she also found herself writing things that did not fit in standard military reports. She wrote about morale. The Kavathi understood morale as a metric that decreased under stress and increased with rest and victory. Human morale did not work that way. After the battle where they lost 12 soldiers, human morale should have been low. Instead, it seemed stronger. They were exhausted and wounded, but they were more unified than before. She tried to create a mathematical model of human combat effectiveness. The variables did not make sense. Performance increased when conditions worsened. Soldiers fought harder when protecting others than when protecting themselves. The willingness to sacrifice seemed to grow when the danger was greatest. Every equation she built broke down because humans did not follow predictable patterns. During recovery time, she interviewed soldiers. She sat with them in the mess hall in the rec area during their off hours. They talked to her openly. They told her about their homes, their families, the people they missed. They showed her pictures of children and parents and loved ones far away. "This is my daughter," one soldier said, showing a small photograph. "She's 5. When I get home, I'm teaching her to ride a bicycle." "Why do you carry this?" Velnara asked. "Does it not make the separation more painful?" The soldier looked at the picture with such tenderness, it made Velnara uncomfortable. "It reminds me why I'm here, why it matters. I'm not just fighting. I'm making sure she has a safe galaxy to grow up in." Velnara recorded these conversations. She began to understand that humans fought for reasons that went beyond tactics and territory. They fought for people they loved. They fought for ideas they believed in. They fought because they thought it mattered, not because the calculations said they should. The reconnaissance mission was supposed to be simple. A mixed patrol of Kavathi and human soldiers would scout a valley where Vrex activity had been reported. Commander Velkus led the Kavathi team. Lieutenant Park led the humans. It was supposed to be routine. The ambush came from 3 sides. The Vrex had prepared well. They caught the patrol in a narrow canyon with steep walls and limited cover. Within seconds, the situation went from routine to catastrophic. Velnara watched from the command center, her hands gripping the console. The patrol was split. Velkus and his Kavathi soldiers were pinned down in a depression, taking heavy fire. They had multiple wounded and their position was rapidly becoming untenable. Park and his team were 200 meters away, separated by open ground that was now a killing zone. The tactical solution was obvious. Park's team should withdraw while they had the chance. They could call in support and attempt a rescue later. Staying meant they would all die. "Lieutenant Park," the command channel crackled, "withdraw to Extraction Point 7. We will coordinate a rescue operation." Park's response was immediate. "Negative. We have soldiers trapped. We're going to get them. You do not have the numbers for a successful rescue. You will be killed. We don't leave people behind." Velnara watched her screens in horror as Park's team began moving. They did not retreat. They advanced directly into the enemy fire. It was madness. Every tactical simulation said this would fail, but humans did not fight by simulations. Park's team moved in a coordinated rush that spoke of endless training. They used smoke grenades, suppressing fire, and pure speed. They were hit immediately. One soldier went down in the first 10 seconds. Another fell moments later, but the rest kept moving. They reached an outcropping that provided minimal cover. From there, Park directed fire at the Vrex positions, while 2 of his soldiers moved further forward. Velnara could hear him on the communication channel, calm despite the chaos around him. "Covering fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark." The humans fired in unison, forcing the Vrex to take cover. In that brief window, Park and 2 others sprinted across open ground toward the trapped Kavathi. They were exposed completely. The Vrex opened fire. Park was hit twice, once in the arm and once in the side. He stumbled but did not fall. He reached Velkus's position and immediately began organizing the extraction. He assigned humans to carry wounded Kavathi. He directed covering fire. He moved like a conductor leading an orchestra, even as blood spread across his uniform. The extraction was brutal. 3 humans died, buying time for the others to escape. Park personally carried Commander Velkus across 200 meters of hostile ground. He took 2 more rounds, one in the leg and one that cracked his helmet. He still did not fall. When they finally reached the extraction point and the rescue shuttle arrived, Park collapsed. Only then, when everyone else was safe, did he allow himself to stop. Velnara met the shuttle when it landed. She watched as medics rushed to treat the wounded. Park was conscious, but barely. His armor was shattered in multiple places. He had lost dangerous amounts of blood. But when he saw Velkus being carried out alive, he smiled. She approached him as medics worked on his injuries. "Why did you do that? You should have retreated. You nearly died. 3 of your soldiers did die." Park's eyes focused on her. His voice was weak but steady. "They're ours. We don't leave ours behind." "Ours?" Velnara said. "They are Kavathi. They are not your species. Doesn't matter. We fight together. That makes them ours. That makes them worth dying for." Velnara stood there as the medics took Park away. Something fundamental had shifted in her understanding. For weeks, she had been trying to quantify human combat effectiveness. She had been measuring the wrong things. Human strength did not come from their tactics or their weapons. It came from their absolute, unwavering loyalty to anyone they claimed as their own. She visited Commander Velkus later in medical. The Kavathi commander was recovering. He would survive thanks to Park's actions. "Have you ever seen anything like them?" she asked him. Velkus was quiet for a long time. "No," he finally said. "And I hope I never have to fight against them." For the first time, Velnara understood why the galaxy spoke of humans with dread. It was not because they were fierce. Many species were fierce. It was because if you became their enemy, they would never stop coming, and if you became their ally, they would die before they let you fall. That night, Velnara rewrote her entire report. She deleted the tactical analyses and the combat metrics. She started with a simple sentence. I do not understand humans, but I am beginning to understand why we should. The intelligence report arrived during morning briefing. Velnara sat with the senior officers as they reviewed the data. The news was bad. The Vreks were assembling for a final massive assault. Reconnaissance showed 5 battalions moving into position. The numbers were overwhelming. The defenders were outnumbered 5-1. Kavathi Command made their decision within an hour. The base would be evacuated. All military personnel and essential equipment would be moved to a fortified position 300 kilometers north. It was the logical choice. The base could not be held against such numbers. Better to preserve forces and re-engage later under better conditions. Commander G requested a meeting with command. Velnara attended as the official observer. She watched as G stood before the senior Kavathi officers, her posture respectful but firm. "We cannot evacuate," G said simply. The Kavathi general's face showed no expression. "Explain." "We have 800 civilians at this base now. Refugees have been coming in from surrounding settlements. They're here because we promised protection. We cannot move them all in time. The Vreks will slaughter them." "That is unfortunate, but it does not change the tactical reality. We cannot hold against 5 battalions. Then we die trying." The room went silent. Velnara watched the Kavathi officers exchange glances. They thought G was being emotional, irrational. In their minds, she was making a poor decision based on feelings rather than facts. "Commander G," the general said slowly, "you will follow orders. You will evacuate your forces with ours. This is not a request." "With respect, General, I refuse that order." The general stood. He was large, even for a Kavathi. "Then you will be relieved of command and face court-martial." G did not flinch. "I accept those consequences, but my soldiers won't leave those civilians. You can arrest me, but you cannot make us abandon people who trusted us." Velnara found herself standing. She did not know why. The words came out before she could stop them. "I recommend we stay and fight." Every eye in the room turned to her. She had never spoken up in a command meeting before. She was an observer, not a tactician, but she continued anyway. "I have been studying human combat methodology for 6 weeks. I have documented 43 engagements. My conclusion is that tactical calculations do not adequately measure human effectiveness. They fight differently when protecting others. Their performance exceeds all predictions when the stakes are personal." The general stared at her. "You are suggesting we risk our entire force on the possibility that human emotional attachment will somehow overcome a 5-1 numerical disadvantage?" "I am suggesting that I have witnessed humans do impossible things because they believed those things mattered. I have watched them survive when they should have died, win when they should have lost, and inspire others to fight beyond their normal capacity." She paused. "I have also learned something from them. Some things are worth the risk." The meeting ended with no resolution. Command gave the evacuation order. G refused it. The Kavathi forces began preparing to leave. The humans began preparing to stay. Velnara went to her quarters. She had decisions to make. She could evacuate with the Kavathi forces. She could preserve her own life and continue her career. That was the logical choice. Instead, she found herself walking to the human section of the base. She found Sergeant Kang helping civilians board transport vehicles. The transports would take them north, away from the coming battle. "I wish to stay," Velnara said. Kang looked surprised. "You know what's coming. We might all die." "I know, but I have been watching humans fight for weeks. You have taught me that survival is not the only thing that matters." Kang smiled. It was tired and sad, but genuine. "Welcome to the human way of doing things." That night, something unexpected happened. Kavathi soldiers began returning to the base. Small groups at first, then larger ones. They had evacuated as ordered, but they came back. Commander Velkus, still recovering from his wounds, was among them. The general arrived personally to demand an explanation. Velkus stood before him with quiet dignity. "We fought beside the humans," Velkus said. "They bled for us. They died for us. We cannot abandon them now. It would be dishonorable." The general looked at his soldiers. Nearly a third of the Kavathi force had returned. In Kavathi culture, honor mattered. Loyalty mattered. The humans had demonstrated both. Now Kavathi soldiers were choosing to follow that example, even if it meant disobeying orders. The general was silent for a long time. Then he spoke quietly. "I cannot officially approve this action, but I will not stop you. If you choose to stay, you do so of your own will." He left. The remaining Kavathi forces evacuated. Those who stayed began preparing for the battle. The Vrex assault began at dawn. They came like a tide of metal and fury, overwhelming in their numbers. The defensive positions were strong, but not strong enough, not against these numbers. Velnara fought for the first time in her life. She had been a scholar, an observer, an analyst. Now she stood on a defensive wall with a rifle in her hands, firing at targets that seemed endless. Kang fought beside her, calm and focused despite the chaos. The eastern wall fell first. Park led a desperate counterattack to retake it. The wall was retaken, but the cost was terrible. Park himself was wounded again, a deep cut across his face that he ignored as he continued directing his soldiers. The western wall buckled under sustained fire. G moved forces to reinforce it, pulling soldiers from other positions. It was a dangerous gamble, weakening some positions to save others. But it worked. The wall held. Hours passed. The defenders fought with everything they had. Humans and Kavathi fought side by side, covering each other, supporting each other. Velnara saw Kavathi soldiers risk themselves to save wounded humans. She saw humans throw themselves into danger to protect Kavathi positions. They were not two separate forces anymore. They had become one. Then the Vrex made their move. They broadcast a signal across all channels. The image showed Commander G. She had been captured during a supply run outside the base. The Vrex commander spoke in trade language. "Your leader is ours. Surrender or watch her die." Velnara watched the screens. G was restrained but unbroken. Her face was bloody but defiant. The Vrex wanted to demoralize the defenders. They wanted surrender. They got something else entirely. The human forces did not break. They did not despair. Something changed in them, something fundamental and terrifying. Velnara had seen humans fight hard before. She had seen them determined, focused, fierce. This was different. This was rage given form. Park's voice came over the communication channel. It was cold and absolutely certain. "All human units, prepare for full assault. We're getting her back." "Lieutenant Park," a Kavathi officer said, "that is suicide. They have her in their main position. You cannot possibly—" "We're getting her back," Park repeated. "Anyone who wants to help, follow us. Anyone who doesn't, stay here and hold the base." Every human soldier followed. So did most of the Kavathi. Velnara found herself running with them, rifle in hand, no longer thinking about tactics or survival, just about getting G back. They hit the Vrex main position like a hammer. The assault should have failed. Every tactical analysis said it was impossible. A frontal attack against a fortified position with superior numbers was suicide. But humans did not care about tactical analysis anymore. They cared about getting their commander back. Velnara ran with them. She fired her weapon. She took cover when explosions rocked the ground. She watched as soldiers fell around her and others kept advancing. It was chaos and fury and desperation. And somehow it was working. The Vrex had not expected this. They expected surrender or defensive fighting. They did not expect an all-out assault from a supposedly broken force. The human attack was so fierce, so relentless, that it created its own momentum. Park led from the front. He had been wounded so many times that his armor was more bandages than plating. He should have been in medical. Instead, he was the tip of the spear, moving forward with absolute determination. When his rifle ran dry, he used his sidearm. When that ran dry, he picked up a fallen weapon and kept firing. Kang fought beside him, coordinating flanking movements while firing at targets. She moved like someone who had accepted death and found freedom in that acceptance. Nothing could stop her because she had already decided the cost did not matter. The Kavathi soldiers fought with a fury that surprised even Velnara. They had learned something from the humans. They had learned that sometimes logic mattered less than loyalty. Commander Velkus led a charge that broke through the Vrek's right flank. His soldiers followed him, shouting battle cries in languages that mixed Kavathi and human words. They reached the central compound. G was being held in a fortified structure. The Vreks had it heavily defended. Park did not slow down. He led his team directly at the building, using explosives to blow through the outer wall. The fighting inside was brutal and close. No room for tactics or strategy, just violence and will. Velnara found herself inside the building, not sure how she got there. She saw Park shoot 2 Vrek soldiers and then get hit himself. He went down hard. Kang was immediately there, dragging him to cover while firing one-handed. Velnara moved without thinking, adding her fire to Kang's, covering them both. They found G in a cell. She was wounded but conscious. When she saw Park being carried by Kang, she tried to stand. "Get him out of here, I can walk." "We're all getting out," Kang said. "Together." The withdrawal was even more chaotic than the assault. The Vreks were reorganizing, bringing in reinforcements. The defenders fought their way back to the base, carrying their wounded, refusing to leave anyone behind. They made it, barely. The base defenses held just long enough for everyone to get inside. Then the real miracle happened. Vrek's forces began pulling back. The assault had cost them too much. They had the numbers, but they no longer had the will. Fighting humans and the soldiers humans had inspired was too expensive. By sunset, the Vreks were in full retreat. The battle was over. Velnara sat in the medical tent, her hands shaking. She was unhurt except for minor scrapes, but she felt fundamentally changed. She had crossed a line. She had stopped being an observer and become a participant. She had learned what it meant to fight for something beyond tactics. Commander G was in the tent, being treated for her injuries. Park was 2 beds over, finally allowing medics to properly address his many wounds. Kang was refusing treatment until everyone else was seen to first. It was very human of her. Velnara approached G's bed. The commander looked tired but alert. "You stayed," G said. "You fought with us." "I did." "Why?" "You're an observer. This isn't your war." Velnara considered the question. 6 weeks ago, she would have had a logical answer. Now she only had the truth. "Because you taught me that some things matter more than survival. Because I have watched humans fight for each other, die for each other, and I wanted to understand. The only way to understand was to stand beside you." G smiled slightly. "Did you understand?" "I am beginning to." Velnara sat down carefully. Her body ached in ways she was not used to. "I need to complete my report. I need to explain to Kavathi Command what makes humans dangerous." "What will you tell them?" Velnara thought about everything she had seen. The battles, the sacrifices, the impossible victories. She thought about soldiers who refused to abandon the wounded, about commanders who valued lives over tactical advantages, about warriors who fought harder when protecting others than when protecting themselves. "I will tell them the truth," she said, "that humans are not dangerous because of your weapons or your tactics. You are dangerous because you cannot be deterred. You fight for reasons that go beyond survival. Territory can be negotiated, resources can be traded, but you fight for each other, and there is no negotiating with that." Over the next few days, Velnara worked on her final report. She discarded all her early work, all the tactical analyses and combat metrics. They did not capture what mattered. Instead, she wrote about what she had learned. She wrote about loyalty that could not be quantified, about courage that went beyond logic, about humans who treated every life as sacred, even when it cost them dearly. She wrote about warriors who cried for their wounded and laughed in the face of death, about soldiers who carried pictures of loved ones into battle and fought like demons to get home to them. She wrote about the moment she understood why the galaxy feared humans. It was not one moment, but many. It was watching Park lead a suicidal rescue mission. It was seeing Kang refuse to abandon anyone, ever. It was witnessing Ji choose possible death over certain dishonor. Her final report was different from anything she had ever written. It was not objective. It was not purely analytical. It was honest. Humans do not fight like other species, she wrote. They fight for each other with absolute commitment. You cannot negotiate with them because they do not calculate cost versus benefit when lives are at stake. You cannot intimidate them because they have already accepted death as a possibility and decided to fight anyway. You cannot break them because their strength comes from their connections to each other, and those connections grow stronger under pressure. She concluded with a warning. If you make humans your enemy, understand that they will never stop. They will take losses that would destroy other species and keep coming. They will endure what should be unendurable. They will fight battles they cannot win because they believe those battles matter. Then she added something else. But if you earn their loyalty, you gain something far more valuable than an alliance. You gain warriors who will treat your life as precious as their own. You gain protectors who will die before they abandon you. I have witnessed this personally. I fought beside humans. They treated me as one of their own, and because of that, I fought like one of them. She sent the report to Kavathi High Command. Then she went to find Commander Ji. She found her outside watching the sunset. Ji's arm was in a sling, but she was recovering. I have been asked to continue my observations, Velnara said, to train with human forces and learn your methods. Will you accept? Yes, but not as an observer anymore. As a student, Ji smiled. What changed? Velnara looked at the base around them. Human and Kavathi soldiers worked together, rebuilding defenses, sharing meals, telling stories. The walls between species had come down during the battle. They had not gone back up. I used to think courage was about not being afraid, Velnara said. I thought strength was about winning. You taught me that courage is being afraid and fighting anyway. That strength is about who you fight for, not whether you win. She paused, finding the right words. I witnessed humans step onto the battlefront. I saw you bleed. I saw you die. I saw you refuse to give up when any logical species would have surrendered. And I finally understood why the galaxy dreads you. It is because you make us want to be better. You make us believe we can be more than survival calculations. And that is the most dangerous thing of all. Ji put her hand on Velnara's shoulder. It was a human gesture, one Velnara was learning to understand. Welcome to the family, Ji said simply. Velnara felt something warm in her chest. She recognized it now. It was what humans felt when they belonged to something larger than themselves. It was what made them fight so hard and care so much. She had come to study humans. Instead, she had become one of them. Not in species, but in spirit. And she would never be the same again.